Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Time is fast spent, but I can assure you that we'll make meaningful use of the minutes that we do have left on this segment of the program. And today, as Nigeria marks her 64th birthday yesterday, we're still advocating and still talking about promoting the rights of women. Of course, in the last 64 years, many progresses have been made, and of course, several challenges still inhibiting the potential of the women being fully realized. But then can we talk about the success story and again highlight some of the challenges going forward? And we do have a guest in the house today, and together we'll make a meaningful contribution on this topic. We have joining us Wemimo Adewuni. She's the Media and Strategic Communications Manager, WOTC. Of course, WOTC is an NGO saddled with the responsibility of promoting everything about the women and the girl child. Thank you, Wemimo, for being here on the program.
I'm happy to be here, and happy Independence Day celebration.
Right, and I see that you're still basking in the
yeah,
furrow. You're still wearing green.
I am.
Right, let's take a look at, I mean, at 64, Nigeria can, you know, it's a potpourri really of, you know, ups and downs of where we've been, where we're going to. But when we look at the rights of the women and the girl child, how would you describe how far we've come?
So about 2 days ago, I sat to write a statement, you know, looking at women's rights. And one of the things that happened around the Independence Day is we bemoan a lot of things that have gone wrong. But I felt it might be a good opportunity to also look back and celebrate how far we've come. Because celebrating that is an acknowledgement of the work that women's rights organizations have done over the years. Right. Women's rights activists, you know, advocates and so on. And it's so great that we've been able to establish some legal policies and even laws, not just policies, even laws, you know, that can support the fight of the woman. Whether those are implemented right now is another ball game, but it is a plus that we have these laws in place. It's even better than that some of these laws are now domesticated in most of the states in Nigeria. I say this in a few sentences. A lot of work went into that. A lot of fights went into that. A lot of battle went into that. A lot of advocacy, lobbying, you know, went into that over the past years. But 64, it's better late than never, but I mean, that's where we are.
Right, I know that because I read that statement that you wrote, and one of the things you also alluded to that I'd like for us to also talk about is the fact that Nigeria has also signed various international laws, and of course, we've also domesticated the CEDAW law here in Nigeria, that's Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And I particularly like the fact that, yes, some of those policies are there. Whether they are properly implemented is another kettle of fish entirely. But then if we look at the CEDAW and the domestication of that law, would you say that stakeholders generally have done their very best at ensuring that all of the things stipulated in that law are followed through? No.
So we have a very patriarchal society that's shifting very slowly. It's shifting, but very slow. And while it's moving so slowly, women are being impacted. Women make up about 50%, not up to about 49+% of the Nigerian population. That's not a minority. That's not a segment of society that you should be advocating for so rigidly. You know, it should be easy. You think it should be easy, right? Because 50% is not a minority. However, we have a strong patriarchal community backed by culture, backed by religion, the various religions that institute men as lords and the best of all. I mean, and you see this in governance. You see this in political parties. You see this even in the making of the laws that institute our institutions like the police, the Nigerian army. You see all of this sneaking, you know. They are conscious, I won't say unconscious, they are conscious biases. In fact, I attend some seminars and I hear them speak. You can hear tangibly that most of the leaders that we have believe that men are better than women, and that women, you know, yeah, you're just there, you know, we'll give you women leader.
The gap.
Women leader, you know, when it's close to election, go and share rice. That's what you can do.
Go and dance.
Go and dance, go and mobilize, go and, you know, that's what you can do. But no, that's not true. We've proven It's actively proven that this is not true. Women are leading. Can you see the number of women in the banking sector becoming CEOs, MDs, rising in the private sector? If women are moving the private sector forward, we need that translated also into the public sector.
Right, into governance.
Into
and
governance.
so where some people would also say that women are asking for the impossible in code, asking for equity or equality. And so a lot of people can't also decipher what exactly equity is and equality is. If we would like to break it down this morning, is it about equality or about equity? Because a lot of people also get that mixed up.
So personally, as Wemimo, I don't ever get in that conversation. That's just me. But because I'm here to talk,
Right.
I'll talk about it. And here's why I don't. People who raise this argument, particularly those who are against women getting into the positions they are, they do this to, it is a form of gaslighting, you know, oh, is it equality or is it equity? Please, it's clear what we're asking for. The national gender policy is clear. 50% position for women in governance and politics and appointments and cabinets, in elective positions. That's pretty clear.
Right.
It's clear.
And then you can give it the name you want
Well,
to.
whatever you want. If you like, call it dance. I don't care. Just make the table available. Put women there.
Right.
Countries like Rwanda, South Africa, they make tangible laws that you have to abide by at political level, political party levels. There's a certain number of women that must be on your ballots.
Right.
That's where we should be. With all those innuendos around, okay, you guys have not situated the right word. That's why we're not supporting this. You're asking for equality. You want to be men. No, please stop.
No, right.
Men cannot be women.
And
women cannot be men.
Right.
But we
then
can
there are
all
equal
contribute.
opportunities.
We can all contribute to the country that we love equally.
Right. So it's been years since the Beijing conference and the 30% affirmative. And, you know, it's becoming a cliche where everybody keeps thinking, oh, what has happened since the Beijing conference? And here we are talking about the facts that just put the cards on the table and make it free, make it fair, make it equitable for everybody to bring, you know, their powers onto the table. So if we go back to that 30% affirmative, it was even 30% then. Now we're saying we couldn't get 30% and we now want 50%. How achievable is this, especially in a society such as ours?
So let me start by saying that the Beijing conference, like you said, is almost now cliche, you know, the Beijing conference. Fantastic conference that started the move for many things that have come afterwards. But I like to always talk about the national gender policy because it's a government, it's a Nigerian government developed policy that situates how...
That's homegrown.
It's homegrown. We sat with committees over years to develop a comprehensive document that states how the gaps have been highlighted in public office, whether at local government level, in appointments, even in housing, in healthcare, and how these gaps can be filled with targets.
Right.
We then moved on. We have a 2021 to 2026 policy. So this means that as a country, we're doing the leap work to say we want to achieve this. So we have a document, we have targets. So for you here, this is what you have to do in 2021, 2022, up to 2026. In that document, we agreed that we need to move to 50% of political representation for women. We also broke down what we need to do to make sure that more women are able to own homes, because this is also property is a power tussle in Nigeria as it is in Africa, right? Women in many instances, despite laws, still cannot own property. Women make up the larger percentage of small farmers, but they don't own land. So what are they doing? They don't own the land where they're farming.
Right.
So these are tangible issues that we need to shift. And we need to move beyond just the words and the rhetorics and actually do.
Right. There's also, of course, we do know that there's legislative process ongoing on the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. And, of course, this was enacted in 2015. And that also is still work in progress. And, of course, still dilly-dallying over the passage of that law. I know that, you know, you're also very particular about this because, again, this is not just about the woman, but this is about everybody and the facts that everybody has a right to live. And so what's your take on where that law is at the moment, and what do we need to do to ensure that, you know, it gets the desired attention it really needs?
So we were all ecstatic when the VAP
The act.
bill
The
was
bill.
then signed into law in 2015 by the Goodluck Jonathan administration. It was amazing because it's a law that protects women from violence. Under the VAP Act, you can sue for widowhood practices. You can sue for men who try to get your property as a woman. You can sue for sexual and gender-based violence, all forms of molestation and harassment. You know, since 2015 up till now, it's not fully implemented yet, right? In fact, although the VAP Act is now domesticated in many states, we've been actively pushing state by state. It's not easy work. They don't just say, oh, this is good, let's domesticate.
Right.
You have to keep running after them.
Okay.
You have to keep lobbying, holding meetings, meeting the legislature in all the states. Now we've got about 34 states now who've domesticated the VAP Act. Fantastic, right? But you find out that many police officers today, when prosecuting SGBV cases, they do not refer to the VAP Act.
Right. Why? Why is
They
that?
don't know it exists. We just discovered that most of them don't even know. Do you know that most lawyers do not even prosecute based on the VAP Act?
So why is it?
They still got the criminal.
Act?
It is there, but you know, many times these things take a while to seep in, and we still need a lot of advocacy. We have discovered, because we did an appraisal last month, to say, okay, so why are they not prosecuting based on the VAP Act? Because it gives you the basis, including the penance you have to pay, right? It's clearly stated. We're not shocked to hear that a senator, while it could be well-meaning, I hope it is well-meaning, you know, is trying to repeal the act. What a repeal means is that you are cancelling the act. And some of the reasons they state is to say that the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act should cover not just women, should be broadly based as men and women. Oh, that sounds good, right? But you can amend the law.
You can amend rather
Why
than
do you want to repeal?
Right.
Why do you want to repeal? So we've raised the hashtag amend, not repeal. You can raise amendments on clauses, on line by line, what you need amended.
Because that really is actually, I mean, you can actually do that as, you know, development comes.
Absolutely.
As the eyes open, and then there's the need to just capture in some of those things. So, I mean, if there are no ulterior motives, why repeal?
Why
just
repeal?
like you said.
When you are repealing, you're leaving a gap. You're leaving a huge, right now it's not fully implemented. When you then repeal, what happens? On what basis do women go to court? On what basis can we challenge harassment and molestation against women? On what basis can we challenge gender gaps? How do we do that?
Right. Let's also quickly look at, as part of promoting the rights of women, economic empowerment is also huge. And that's why sometimes, of course, issues around widowhood can also be a backlash, of course, if a woman is not properly empowered. How do we raise this conversation? How do we begin to, again, make women realize that, you know what, even if you want to be a housewife, at least still have something that you're doing, be empowered one way or the other. So how do we escalate this? How do we ensure that it is also one of those conversations that we're putting in the front burner?
So I've come to realize that culture is very difficult to shift. It's possible, you know, and I tell people every opportunity I have, that culture is the way of a people. When we say that shaving women's hair, having them sit in ash, putting them through fasting, drinking stuff. You know, when you say this is our culture, what are you talking about? You're saying this is a culture of great, grand forefathers that we never met. Things that they did 100 years ago. We are here now. Can we do what's profitable and meaningful for us now because we have brains? Can we figure out if this is a positive culture? There was a time twins were being killed. Why don't we continue? Why don't we say, oh, it's how we used to do it? We figured out that it's not right, positive. We switched it over. But women also have to come together, because women sometimes also, because they've been groomed into this culture, they believe they are custodians of these widowhood practices, and it has to be done.
Right, they can't be the ones to break the norm.
Absolutely. I'm asking you to please be the one to break the norm, because it's actually illegal. It's a crime to do these things. So we're not just begging you to change. We're telling you that if we catch you, you are going to jail. Let's be clear.
Right. So again, it's a mindset, really.
Right.
And sometimes you find women also. And there's this thing that, of course, that is commonly said, the pull me down syndrome amongst women, where, you know, oftentimes you hear, oh, but the women don't even love themselves. The women are the ones who also do not want to create an atmosphere of development for themselves. Have we moved away from that era? Have we moved away?
Okay, so you see, that line again is something that people say as a form of gaslighting. Let me tell you why. Human beings have bad behaviors, and it's not gender-based.
Right.
Men or women.
If you're bad, you're bad.
If you're a bad person, you're a bad person, wherever you find yourself. Now, we have a lot of men in politics. Most of the men leading, I mean, look at the last Edo election. We had only one female governorship candidate, 5 deputy governorship candidates. Out of 17 governorship candidates, 1 woman. And of course, she didn't win.
Of course.
Right. So men are in the position, right? So are men giving room for themselves to win? They are killing themselves in politics. We're not gaslighting them to say men are pulling men down.
We seem to think that's
That's normal for them.
Right.
But if a woman does something wrong, it's every woman. It's gaslighting. There are good women. I've met great women. I've worked with amazing women. There's a group of women called We Manifesto where they support one another. You know, I used to be a broadcaster.
Yes,
There's a strong support journalism core of women that I have. I've been supported by women. So when I hear that, I say it's a human thing. Bad behavior is a human thing, whether you're male or female.
Okay.
If you've had an encounter with one woman, it's not every woman. If you have the bad encounter with one man, it's not every man.
Right. So, of course, let's also quickly look at, again, some will say most times women sit and look about promoting the rights of women, neglecting the boy child. And of course, if you empower the woman and leave the boy child, it'll come back and hunt us all behind. So as much as we are about advocating for the rights of women, how also should we ensure that the boy child is not left behind?
That's a valid point to raise, because if we raise a proper girl to become a proper woman, she gets married to a poorly raised boy who becomes a man who then makes her life miserable.
Right.
That's not the society we want. So yes, and there are organizations that are working with the boy child. There are more of them springing up now. In fact, there are organizations working with men also to educate them about women's rights and how this shouldn't actually be a tussle. It's all of us pitching in and into the pot so that everyone can have a fuller pot. It makes sense, right? So I agree that we need to do more of this advocacy. It's not what we do at our organization. We're focused on women and girls, but we provide human rights support, legal support for a few men when the need arises, right? But the focus is on women and girls. But there are organizations focusing on the boy child because they're very a key part of our society, and we need a balanced society for women to thrive in.
Okay, so let's look at, because we cannot wrap up this conversation without talking about the current administration and how you think government can also ensure that the rights of the woman is upheld at all times, and also in terms of making more rooms available for women to come into leadership positions.
All right, the first thing that needs to be done, we've had this call numerous times, so maybe I'll make the call here again, for the 10th Assembly, National Assembly, to revisit the 5 gender bills that were raised in the 9th Assembly. They were thrown out in a disgusting manner. They were thrown out in a way that made you realize that we have a patriarchal society and legislature. They didn't breathe. They were no in a few minutes, right? These are laws that, if implemented in the Constitution, would ensure that at political parties there's a minimum number of women that must be on the ballot, not just as women leaders, at political level, the party level, at a party level, at decision-making level. It also ensures that there's a minimum number of women that should be on the ballot, a number of women that should be in the legislative seats in total, you know, and so on. So I'd ask them to revisit that bill, the 5 gender bills, and let's pick them up again and pass them into law. It's not also enough to give women room as special assistants. That's about the same thing we do as women leaders, right?
Right. Just compensation.
Yeah, and let me be able to say I have women. in the cabinet.
Right.
We need more women as ministers, right? And we need them at prominent positions where they can make impactful change. Same at the state levels,
Right.
where it's even worse. It's even worse. We need more women as councillors at local governments. We need more women as commissioners, you know, leading and being able to hold their fort and allowed to do their work.
Right. So, very quickly before you go, we've talked about, you know, all of these issues, but let's quickly gloss over maternal health, because that also is one area that a lot of women's rights are also being abused. What do you have to say concerning access to quality health, as well as cultural shift in some of the beliefs around maternal health?
It's shocking that in 2024, we still lose women from things like bleeding, postpartum bleeding. It's a reality. It's sad. We still lose a lot of women and girls from unsafe abortions. And these are advocacies that we've taken on. We're currently on safe abortion advocacy, and we're soon beginning an advocacy to end postpartum bleeding, right? Because we can't talk about women feeling the seat if they're dying.
Right.
Right, and one of the biggest cultural inhibitors we have for abortion, people don't want to talk about abortion, but they are having abortions. Girls, we found the crudest ways with which girls are in secondary schools. We need to talk about it. We can't keep hiding behind one finger and pretend it's not happening when they're dying. And many of them a few of them present at the hospitals
quite late.
Quite late. They either have unmendable complications or they die. But if we talk about it, for instance, the Lagos State government in 2022 created a safe termination of pregnancy guideline and repealed it in a week. Oyo State has a guideline. Ogun State has a guideline. Akwa Ibom has a guideline. There is a national guideline. We need that guideline back. We can't just keep talking if we're not creating supporting documents to protect the lives of women.
Right, and that's why it's a policy, and so it's a guideline really. These are things that if you allow the law to help guide, and then these things can work. Okay, very quickly, any success story you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
Absolutely. So we receive on a daily basis. Well, people might say, oh, well, maybe we're having more cases of SGBV. I'm happy because I'm the first person to receive some of these from our social media pages. More women and girls raising up their voices who are being abused. This is what's happened to me. I'm happy that women now know that they can speak out. Right. And when they speak out, we provide legal services, psychosocial services. We have a shelter in Ogun State. You know, there's support. More women now know that this is available. And I mean, last week alone, we had about 10.
Just a week?
Just in a week. That's minus those, I mean, that's on social media. That's minus those that come to the office by themselves. And daily, because we have a team of lawyers also on ground to attend to them, and a counselor, psychologist, right? So I'm happy that more women are speaking up, and I ask them to please continue to do so. And when you hear another woman in distress, if you don't know what to do, call us, right? Just call,
just
would
have thought that, you know, the people perpetrating this act should actually have a change of heart or have another mindset. If people are speaking daily that it is happening, and then you're still doing this, then there's something else going on.
It's a crime. It's why thieves never stop. It's a crime, right? They always think they'll get away with it. The person who was caught wasn't smart. It's a crime to beat a woman. You'll go to jail.
Okay. All right, I'm sure you've heard it there. Very quickly, I know that some time is spent, and I've said this last, but then maybe you'd also help lend your voice to this, and that's also part of maternal issues. I read a story days ago on one of the social media platforms where a man also did not sign for his wife to have a CNS, and then she ended up dying. I know this is part of the culture shift you spoke about and thoughts, but can we also begin to also admit that it's okay to have a CS? It's okay if you are in you need help. I'd rather than, you know, this, you will give birth like a Hebrew woman.
But do they know what the Hebrew women were?
I don't know if they were around.
Do we have time for me? But even what the Bible says about the Hebrew women.
Please go ahead.
What the Bible said about the Hebrew, I'm Christian, is that when Pharaoh was killing the children of the Israelites, the midwives, because the king had told them to kill every male child, and they wanted to protect those babies. So they lied to Pharaoh to say that, oh, before we get there, they had delivered. It was a lie. It wasn't true. Of course, nobody pops up kids like a pill.
Right.
It takes a process.
Yeah.
So it was a lie. So when you said the Hebrew women, I just asked you, what are you talking about? They lied to protect the Israelite babies.
Okay.
Now, when I saw that story you referred to, I just told myself, maybe it's just clout, maybe it's not true. Because I find it difficult to believe that a hospital in this 2024,
would
and if it's
that.
true, and you know the woman, please reach out to us, would allow a woman die because you can give consent
Yes, you can.
as a woman.
You can.
And every hospital
Especially when
has
your life is at risk.
a right and a duty to
protect.
protect and preserve a life. If that woman really died and that story was true, I would love to know. I just felt it can't be true. And even as a man going to jail for putting his wife's life at risk, the hospital
Also is culpable.
the hospital is culpable. I've had 2 cesarean sections. Look at me, I'm here, right?
Yeah.
It's just something.
It's just a process.
It's a process, like going for whatever.
Attraction.
Yeah, you know, it
Okay,
protects
I
your
just
life.
wanted to have your view on that. Thank you so much, Wemi Adewuni, Media and Strategy Communication Manager, WOTC. Thank you for being here on the program
happy to
today.
be here.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Whereas that's the much we'll take on the conversation this morning. Finally, Joy sneaked into the studio. Joy, I'm sure you'll tell the story of what you went through on that bridge this morning. Don't worry, I'm sure Joy will tell our viewers that when it's their turn. I'm off now, and then when we return, Adebimpe and Joy will take their legal story.